Oh, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob. And I'm here out in the forest, you know, hanging on my neighbor's driveway. Um, and here it is Monday. Tomorrow I'm going in the hospital. And pretty much at my age and all the things that are wrong with me, I go in pretty regularly just to get they keep doing tests on me, right? And there's nothing, there's everything is wrong, but nothing is catastrophic. So every time, well, we did this. I said, no, I'm not letting you touch me with a knife. I'm not doing anything until, well, your backbones. I said, all I need is give me a chiropractor. Aren't there any chiropractors around here? Well, we don't. Anyway, but my health is that of, I have very little money, and the tweakers out there, so I'm having to feed those guys. Even, Colonel Sanders won't feed his slaves. He doesn't pay these guys. He gives them a little meth, and that's good. Hey. Uh, so anyway, um, so I listen to public radio, and I just kind of let my phone uh, record everything, right? So, do, 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 do. Uh, 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 uh. Let's see what we got here. Ornamental architecture, if you look up, is just beautiful because there's still a lot of 19th century buildings left over in the Centro Histórico. That's part of the mark of a good traveler is taking a moment to listen and to smell and to observe the humanity on the streets, but also to look above at that commotion and see the architectural heritage that contains it all. Yes. David Lita, it's just so fun to talk to you because I think Mexico City is one of the underrated destinations for travelers, especially when you think of how easy it is to get there from the United States. And it's what you talk about in your book, First Stop in the New World. David, if we could just kind of wrap it up, share one experience where the visitor could really appreciate and feel the soul and the humanity of the biggest city in North America. Just looking at the overwhelming number of people surviving by selling things in the street, they give the city a vibrant street energy that to me makes Mexico City unique. David Lita, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm going to hope to connect with you next time I'm south of the border. And that is so true. Back in the day, when I was a lineman, transformer guru, power supply, um, municipal power supply. And I did that, between 22 and 26. And I was a traveling guy. I worked for Dick Powell, and I worked in the nuclear industry mostly. And then I worked for a number of other companies about that size, and that pretty much all focused on that. And this one, Bear Electric, I work for, and they had a division that traveled around, when people lost, counties had a big storm, right? Well, they had their own guys stringing wire, but often they had big storm, wires would fall down. It would cause shorts in the distribution back at where the super high voltage would come in. And you drive around and you see where all those big lines go into a fenced in area, and it looks like an erector set. There are all these metal girder things with all these insulators on it and big transformers. Well, that's what I used to wire up, right? And there'd be a big storm. Often you could blow out those transformers. And often, if you were a smart municipality or utility, they would have, because these transformers are the size of diesel locomotives, right? And so they're hard to move around. So often they would have the one they're using, and then this one, if that bugs up, all you do is move the wires on there, right? But often you have to retune the transformer, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I did that, right? So, and I didn't work for these guys, like a job. I was, basically I was just talking to one of my adepts, and I'm so proud of him. He's in his early 20s. He was working in this fix it, phone fix it thing as a slave. I said, boy, you are good at this, right? And the guy before him was never one of my students who really had all this self love, but he was a really smart guy, and he was 19, no college, he had no real education whatsoever. And so, he goes, I have to go and take this course. My boss wants me to take this. I said, buddy, you're going to get a certificate, aren't you? Oh, yeah. Then I'm like, a trained, iPhone guy, right? So I said, get your boss to send you to as many of those schools, get these certificates because that's all that matters. And your next employer, so he was getting paid like $12 an hour, right? And the guy was just, he was like your average, moron, capitalist, stupid boss, right? Just because he has a few phone stores, thinks he's like king of the world, and he's like totally overextended, blah blah blah, right? So I said to this kid, so just keep doing this. And so there was a restaurant next door. I would go in, they had Wi-Fi, and if I ever had a problem, I go into him, and he would, oh yeah, just right? So he could write code, he could do everything. This kid, right? He just came from a poor family, couldn't go to college, didn't finish high school, right? Because he had to make money for his dad left and his mom and three kids mom had, his brothers and sisters. So anyway, I basically said, just get as many. So in a year, he got like 20 of these certificates, right? And then I said, so, you know, you're on the internet all the time. I said, you got a website? He goes, oh. I said, put up a website and, give yours, make yourself an LLC and just put up what you can do, right? And so he did. And this was before TikTok, right? And so he put something up on Facebook and he had his own website. And within a week, people said, hey, can you work for us? Can you do this? And he, started doing stuff that they would send to him. And he had his own little business in his apartment. And that made enough money where he bought a house, right? And this is when interest rates were ridiculously low. And he goes, I said, yes, buy a house now, buy a house. I kept saying, buy a house. You got the money, you buy a house, right? Get credit and don't use it. Use it smartly. And so he did all of that, right? He got a good credit rating, bought a house, and then the pandemic came, and he had to, people had to have, wanted to buy a thing in the country. He was kind of in the country, and so, he bought this house for like $17,000, sold it for $140,000. He had fixed it up, but still, it was just a shack. And then someone in California offered him a job for 120,000 and gave him 40 grand to move from the East Coast to California. I said, go, 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 go. What are you going to do? Go. And so he still could, he still had, because his business was they mailed him stuff, right? They didn't really, so he still could keep his business. He got this $140,000 job, and I got a Christmas card from him this year, and he got married, and he's got a really, he eased into a neighborhood that he was, it was kind of funky neighborhood. He bought a really nice house for nothing, and he's now flipping houses in California and still working for those guys. And he married a woman who's, got a job in a bank and makes about as much as he does. And so, and they don't really spend it, and they're investing it in real estate. I mean, that is a smart kid, right? And when I met him, he was like, "Ooh, what should I do?" Right? But I said, "Boy, you were a smart kid," because I said, "How do I do that?" Right? He'd fix everything for me, and that's kind of what I do. I find somebody like that who can do that job for me. I do it, and then I help them be their best, right? And they really excel. I really don't deal with people who I don't see that they can, respond to my nurturing, right? So the tweakers here, I put them in the hippie bus, right? Because they were going to die. Colonel Sanders went up to Florida and said, just camp. And, you can't camp out in the woods when you have no camping gear, don't have a tent, don't have a sleeping bag, don't have anything. And, you're just standing like a, and don't have any food, don't know how to make a these guys were like, "Really?" So, I said, "No, no, no. Get in the bus, it's got a wood stove." "Oh, well, you need to go to Lowe's and buy us wood." "No, no, no, it's called a forest. Go pick it up," right? So they couldn't even do that. I said, "Okay, so go to Colonel Sanders. He got you to cut down wood and split it. He's got that big wagon. Fill it up, right? Drag it up here. Put it under the bus so it stays dry. Here, cover it up in a tarp." These are things they couldn't even think about. Couldn't even figure it out, right? And I had nothing to eat, so I have very little. I have straw. I spend $40 a month on food. Right? I got a little something from a church, and I help start it up, right? Don't you give food? There's over 300 churches in the 4 counties. Only 3 of them help the poor, and everybody here is poor except for the rich, illegal aliens coming from California, Texas, Florida. And when I say illegal aliens, not the fact that they're Hispanic coming from the south of the border. No, they're aliens. Like, they're not human. Colonel Sanders, he's an illegal alien. He's not human. So I was working for this, had a bunch of electric companies that they would call me up. "Hey, we got a project for you. We'll give you 5 grand if you." So this one guy said, "Hey, listen, Mexico City just had an earthquake and it is just wrecked. And they have lost half of their people who work on stuff, and they're just and so we have been given a contract to get them up and running because they don't have the people. They're so wrecked, they're at a level where they can't, so they don't have anybody that does what you do. So we'll give you 5 grand just to go there, and then we'll pay you 5 grand a week." And because they were getting probably millions. So I said, "Sure, sounds fun." So I didn't even need a passport because Mexico is like NAFTA town, and like I said, it's the largest city in North America, bigger than LA, bigger than New York, and it got flattened. And the things that didn't get flattened were the old, old, old Mayan kind of things because they had earthquakes. They know what it's like. They built it for that. And so when I flew in that place, and the electric people came and picked me up. I mean, I wasn't like, and they took me to a place that, you know, was an encampment, and it had a building that had, it was, it looked like it had been a boarding school or a college or something like that. But the utility company had owned it, and they had regularly brought people in to help them work on projects. So this place was like, oh, not a, it was it was like a school. So they had rooms that they gave me a room, and they had a big kind of cafeteria that had a kitchen that actually kind of was. I mean, everything was still working, right? And so I would go, and basically there were 3 facilities that I worked on. Main distribution, where the big power lines came in, right? The 980s came in, and it was one, coal fired station that we were trying to get up. So I spent almost 2 months there, and basically they had crews. That's when I like really spunked up my Spanish. I really, within a week and a half, I was speaking at least Spanish that I could communicate and I could understand that. Because I have this ear that if I am dropped into a place where that's all they're going to speak, that's what I speak. And when I went to Brazil, it took me about a week and a half to learn Portuguese, and that's a lot tougher than Spanish or French, or even German, because all those things are kind of like English. So anyway, the thing that was truly amazing. So they where this big power plant was, this kind of hotelish school or whatever where I was staying was. And the first week or two, that's I didn't go into the city. I just was trying to get this thing up and running. And the guys who did the boiler and all that, the generator, that was that crew, and I was the transformer guy and the switching too, and the control, right? and they had some pretty good control. They had good people, but it was interesting how their own upper management didn't have confidence in the people they had, and the people they had was spot on. They were great, better than most, Anglo morons that I used to work with in America. And so, and I had worked with one Spanish crew when I was in New Mexico. Again, Dick Powell did transmission work, and I was mainly a transformer guy. That was my main thing. And we put in a big leg where they were going to build who knows what. It was for the government, but it was a lot of juice, and you know, we didn't put in the poles. We didn't do any of that. We and all of the facility, meaning the building of a place where they were going to put the distribution transformers was there, and the transformers were there, and the fence was there, and everything was there, but we had to run, and the 980 lines, the line guys brought them into the lead insulators, and then we took it from there, right? And so, and I actually went up. We had a bucket truck, and I took out a big chunk, from this pole to this pole. They had insulators that you could just do this to and take the wire out, right? Which I did because I didn't want any moron to energize something down the line that would like, get us. So I just did that. And the guys, they were all Mexican, and they said, good idea. So that's where I really learned Spanish when I was with those guys. And then a hiatus of about 3, 4 years was between I from then to Mexico City. And so I had learned Spanish then, kind of forgot it, and then picked it up. But so there I'm in Mexico City. And like the guy said, it was unbelievable because we got there, oh, maybe a week after the earthquake, right? I mean, right away. This guy, as soon as the earthquake happened, two calls. I mean, 2 days, I got a call from this company I worked for, and they said, "Can you go to Mexico City? We got a contract to like spunk up get their system working." And I said, "Sure. In about a day I can do it." I said, "Okay." They said, "We'll leave you a ticket at Air Mexico at the desk, and we will, send you, we'll wire some money into your checking account so you'll have a little cash." And I said, "Sounds good to me." So that's what I did. How I got there, right? We had 5 grand in the bank, had the ticket, had about a grand in Mexican money, which is like, gigantic amount of money. And, and these guys that I studied with, they provided everything. I didn't even need cash. And so for the first 2 or so weeks, I was pretty much there. They were outside of the city, pretty much. I mean, the city was right there, but it was up on a hill. The city was the power plant was like on the other side of that hill, and so you could see the city if you were at the top of that building, or if you were over working where the power plant was. So anyway, I did as much as I could at that, and then they said, "Okay, that's that." And I had gotten the guys who had been running that stuff and a few of their other more, sharp kind of engineer guys. We all got, 2 weeks. We were getting it started. We got about 89% of everything done. We had the plan. We had this. It was all working the right, and we were like, that was like a month ahead of where they thought it was because it was gone, right? And but this was a place where they had a lot of stuff. They didn't have to bring a transformer there. They didn't have to, they had all that stuff. We just had to, they had forklifts and cranes and stuff, and so it wasn't that difficult. Everything, and those guys, they knew what to do. Like I said, their upper management just didn't have the confidence in them, but they were great. So we all, I was probably, I was 24, and the next youngest guy and everybody I worked with was like 32. They had been doing it for. So I said, "Listen, guys, you know what you're doing. I'll just give you a hand here, and we'll work as a team, and I'm not your boss, and we're a team, and we're doing this together, and you're great, and let's just keep doing great stuff together. Then, because we would, soon as we were done, soon as it kind of got dark, we would go, the cafeteria. They make food. That was like good for breakfast, and they made a ton of you know tacos and enchiladas and stuff like that. But we would, you know, they had a big freezer that had like cows and lots of stuff to barbecue. So this one guy just could. He dug a pit. They had palm trees. He, started a fire, put the palms over it, and stick a pig in there, and we go up to work for a day, and it would be done the next day, and it would be the best pork you ever friggin' had. And he would, put vegetables all over it, and the vegetables were. I mean, it was actually like a vacation. I got paid 5 grand a week. I had nothing to, it just kept going in my bank account, right? So when I came back from that, I had a nice chunk of change in that. I worked there 3 months, shy under 3 months, and we got everything working in 3 months. And they were saying, "Oh, it'll take a year." We did it in 3 months, and it was only about 20 of us. I mean, we worked on distribution and power. So by um, the second month, beginning of the second month, I was there. I was in town, in the city doing, transformer stations because it's a city bigger than New York, you know, more populated. And what that guy said, it's unbelievable because when I came in there, it was like a week after everything, and it was like it looked like World War II. Everything was bombed down, destroyed. With still stuff all over, still bodies in the street. And I mean, that was kind of, we were going and they were just like stuck, they were piled up like cordwood. Everybody was, de morte, you know. But everyone was cooking food and selling, whatever you needed. And it was like, and what was truly interesting was that if you didn't have the cash for it, they would give it to you and say, "Pay me when you got it." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a city of like 20 something million," and it was like amazing. And I asked the guy, at first I said, "When did this start?" He goes, "Hours, minutes after it stopped rumbling, everyone came out and pulled people out from whoever could be saved." We didn't have first responders. All these people pulled other people out, right? Their neighbors and their children and then the bodies, they just kind of put respectfully over in a place where no one would step on them or drive over them, and they covered them up. And then, that's when the municipality kind of took over. But the people did all the first responding. It was quite amazing. So, and it was all like thousands of people. They had markets everywhere, and they cleaned that off, and they weren't worrying about the buildings or anything, and it was quite freaking amazing. Our, so that was my experience in Mexico City. Truly amazing. And I went back there once um, with one of my long-term sweeties. Oh, she too was like, just totally everything about her career, which was fine. She was a filmmaker. She was a great artist, blah, blah, blah. Right. And she had a really not crazy, interesting roommate. And that lady, her roommate got pretty famous. She was a seamstress. So she made these wild, crazy, the first thing she made was Big Bird, right? Because I knew, Barbara, what was Barbara? Barbara Gatt, not Barbara. What was Barbara's? Oh, this is when you're getting old. And this one, Barbara, I lived with for 2 years while she was putting together children's, TV workshop. That thing that did Sesame Street and Electric Company. She started that, and then she started it. She had worked in CBS and did Captain Kangaroo and a few other things, and then she had this dream of doing this for public TV, and public TV gave her some cash. She put it. I met her because I built her TV studio in Tribeca in a loft. She got a loft, big 6,000 square foot loft, and she lived in it and had her business in it, had her TV studio in it. And that's where I got into TV. I had kind of gotten into TV a little bit, and when I was 16, my dad got me a job at Metro Media for a summer, and I kind of saw what that kind of TV was. So anyway, um, I let's see here. So I've been writing these novels, so I'm going to start reading them, and they're written, the guy who wrote, Tale of Two Cities and Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, one of my favorite writers, and he wrote all his books, like David Copperfield, Great Expectations. Those books he wrote for the newspaper, right? That's why they go on forever and ever, right? So I'm going to read you some of mine, and it's going to be like that. It won't be the whole thing at one shot, but little bits, right? So here is the first one. I don't know if you are still there, but I will see if you're still there. Later on, see if this works, right? Come on. Let's see. Here we are. We're going up here. Okay, book number 1, 5th anthology. Read this one first, maybe. Death, and this is the name of the story. Death to Ego's Lie, it is nothing, right? Copyright 7/4/22. Right? I mean, I've been writing this thing forever, but that's when I put it in together as the first story. The day they landed, prime time. Death to Ego's Lie, it is nothing. Is the 5th book, the first in the X-Rated series. Death is not the villain of our mythos of the X-Rated. Reader, have you parsed the golden fleece of all our relations? What is all our relations story? Why are we here? Who made us? X-Rated is more than a story of all of these questions, for this story is all our relations, Griot mythos, story of love's co-creation, which is all there is. And I have Bible quotes all through, and I don't use a quote, I just tell you where to go read it if you want to. Romans 10:17, right? All else is illusion of ego's violent fears, anger that equals elan. And I have a little star on that. And you go to every place there's a little asterisk. You go to the, um, you know, general directory, and that it gives you like a thesis on what Ellen is. And Ellen is basically a Greek term that, in the street, are you illing, man? Ellen is the Greek version of are you illing, right? Meaning, are you out of balance, right? So that's anger equals being out of balance. What is a griot story? It is something the listener shares with the griot or the teller of the story. And here we are at the being of our series, X-Rated being. You got to be being. You got to be alive. And here we are at the being of our series, X-Rated, period. Reader, period. What do you think? You've got, let's see, reader, what do you think, colon, you've gotten so far, colon, out of the water that I am pouring? And water is a mythological characteristic of knowledge, of freedom, of sex, of being what you want to be, right? What is, let's see, all, yeah, real mystery story. Let's see. What is our story? Why are we here? Who made us? X-Rated is more than a story of all these questions, for this story is Aor's real mythos story of love's co-creation, which is all there is, right? Romans. All else is illusion of egos, violent fears, anger, illness. What is a griot story? A story that needs to be heard. It is something that the listener shares with the griot or the teller of the story. And here we are at the being of our series, Expert Reader. What do you think? You've gotten so far out of the water that I am pouring. If you are reading this, you may have read the other four books. A good deal of this let's see, boop, 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 boop. You may have read the other four books. A good deal of it is very different. My major theme is repetitive. Love is all there is because it is a story that needs to be heard. And how often a listener needs to hear a story more than once. How often have you been told as a child the same grim fairy tale? Grandma's petty, Ilan, gray life of sorrow and self pity, and then focused and forced to repeat over and over and over in the tomorrow of the tomorrow. It is a bad meal, undigested. And if God is, so it is, where is God or Bob in this story? Or you did not really hear it. You just thought you did. Wake up to the realization that the great creator is not an egocentric lie. It is nothing anthropomorphized as it is now. Here we start the end with love as the great co-creator. And we, the children of love's one love, is the reflection of free will, doing our best in service to one love that has always been here as Jesus, the Christ. When you read the Talmud, in ancient Greek, it says, as the burning bush responded to Moses' question, "Who are you?" And love, as the burning bush replied, "I am a work in progress, and you are my reflection." Romans 10:17. Go read Romans 10:17. Now, with a personal prayer that my master gave me, I give it to you in every day, in every way. Let we, as the AOR, take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. In love's co creation, where we realize that our life is not about our ego, meat puppet body, of how am I going to pay the bills. Love keeps us on our path of doing our best in our little adventure that Bob put us on as the lucky bastard, the little feather, the alpha and the omega of the Forrest Gump frame worldview, where we are the we and me. We are not individually exceptional, for we are only the reflection of the we in me as the burning bushes work in progress. I know I am as perfect as Bob made me, as my I am spirit of the love of co creation. I am not perfect. I am my actions in this ego meet puppet illusion world of the golden rule. Those who have the gold rule. Most days of the tomorrow and the tomorrow, I am a moron. I use my conscious intent to do my best. I don't try to do, I am not perfect in my actions. As I said, I am a moron, 40%. The linear illusion experience through my conscious intent. I learned that I am the decider and that this is what we are here to work on. There is no finish line. We are not here, we are not put here to amass a mercantile empire, to be our way into the golden gated community of heaven, to retire into a transhuman virtual reality of eternal safety from our bills. I was born with a shamanic worldview of living to love, to serve, to live in love's co creation as the AOR, we in me. It took me 50 years to realize that most folk did not overstand this worldview of Bob as one love, where we are the all our relations in one love as the we in me, the decider of Bob's work in progress in love's co-creation. And so say we all. I will do my best to be love's one love in co-creation, free-willed work in progress. Yes, and that's the end of that prayer. Life is your spirit, not your body's watch. Tick tock. What more can I say? Wake up, wake up, wake up, you moron. My writing is not cardiac comedy where tragedy plus time equals enlightenment. My stories inform your spirit to be love's decider of one love co-creation. But that is all there is. The lost years. And so the next chapter is the lost years of the imperial bread and circus. When I stopped self-medicating, doing drugs, I thought, how am I going to relate to these everyday holidays of unsustainable mass consumption without doing drugs? Then I remember I have died 7 times. Our ego has been doing angel dust forever. The they see it is as neo-religious reality. Love's co-creation does not see it. One loves is it, not ego, our mother culture. Since she was 0, she is now forever a motherfucker. Each tomorrow and tomorrow, she smoked X cartons of cigarettes and consumed Q gallons of cocktails to self medicate ego's illusion. Why can't she remember just anything about love? Because she does not want to. And that is a family trait. And when I say family trait, I speak of the species Serpentine say, meaning the snake spirit, the reptile in all of us, that reptilian third brain in the back of our head. Everything is just metaphor. For there is no imperial family trait better than any other. We all treat each other like the other when we think of our ego self as imperial. The litany of excess of imperial violence. That's the next chapter. The litany of excess of imperial violence. Without love, can we be heroes just for one day? Collusions 2, 6 through 7. Love, why can't I remember just that one thing in any way? Magnify, sanctify, what is the holy name? Vilify, crucify in the human frame. A million candles burning for one love that never came. You want it darker? We will kill you as love's flame. It is extinguished. How many are ready for the Lord to die? Your question, who can I blame, takes a number. Who can I blame? Question mark. Take a number, period. It is written, and it is not some idle claim. You want it darker? You must kill love's flame. We are the glory, and you are the shame. If you want it darker, we can kill your love's flame. You struggle with your demons. They are so middle class and tame. If you don't like this game, we will let you go, but you will be being lined up. The guards are now taking up their aim. You had permission to murder and to shame. You want it darker, you will kill your love's flame. What it is it about forgiveness, gratitude, humility, and sanctifying grace that makes the human experience so difficult, rewarding, and rewarding at the same time. Thoughts of Leonard Cohen. 7/2/22. T minus 48 hours till the visitors land on the front lawn of the UN, as they have done so many times before, and we did not notice. I ponder the question as I sit on my deck in the deep green as the day's heat cools off and the stars start to rise above my new view. I spent the early morning watching night turn to day as all our relations, I woke to the great me, to greet me. Re- Reread that. I pondered this question as I sit on my deck in the deep green, as the day's heat cools off and the stars start to rise above my new view. I spent the early morning watching night turn to day as all our relations woke to greet me. So yeah, that day I just, I woke up, you know, the night was still there. I woke up like at 5 in the morning, and I kind of walked over to my deck and used the facilities and made some coffee, sat in my wheelchair and watched the stars. And then the sun, started to light up. It didn't rise, but the sky went from dark to dark blue to blue, and the stars were still there. Stars didn't really go away until the sun kind of popped up over the mountain. And my deck, I live in a holler, and so my deck is just above it. So anyway, there you go. Um, Here I am back here, 42 minutes and 15 seconds. And what time is it? Oh, I'm going to move on to my next adventure. I'll come back in maybe an hour or two, and we can see what we can do. See if this came up, see how that worked. So that's what I'm going to, if this worked, I'm going to read you a page or two every day of my novels. Maybe in 3 years, we'll get through them all. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you in a few hours. Okay, we'll talk to you later.